Hello and welcome to our new season of Hangouts on Air. You have joined the Center for Lunar Science and Exploration Hangout. This is episode 3 of a new series that is co-hosted by the Lunar and Planetary Institute and by CosmoQuest. Joining us this week, we have Andrea Jones, who works with the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and is heading up a project that me and co-host Andy Shaner are deeply involved in, and that's the Observe the Moon Night project, which invites everyone around the world to join us on September 19th to look up and enjoy this moon that all of us can see wherever we are in the world. So Andrea, can you tell us a little bit about who you are and how this project got started so many years ago?
Sure. Well, as Pamela said, my name is Andrea Jones, and I am an education specialist with the Lunar and no longer with the Planetary Science Institute, based out of NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center in Greenbelt, Maryland. And I work with a number of projects, but LRO is one of the biggest ones, and it's a very exciting one. It's a mission that is currently in orbit around the moon, collecting all kinds of data, and could see you if you laid down and made a moon angel. We could find you with our camera, and we're also tracking, where the water is on the moon and the temperatures of the lunar surface, and lots of other things. And as part of LRO, and also in combination with NASA's Solar System Exploration Research Virtual Institute, which we call SURVEY, and with the Lunar and Planetary Institute, where Andy Shaner is based, we are the strongest supporters financially, but then with lots and lots of partners, we have teamed up to work on International Observe the Moon Night. And as Pamela said, that is a celebration of lunar science and planetary science, and it's all over the world. And one day every year we encourage people around the world to get together and look up and learn about the moon together. And that's a really, really wonderful project that I work on. That's what we'll be focusing on today. But I'm also very honored to work with a number of other missions and projects in NASA education and outreach, or education and communications as we call it now, with missions such as the Mars Science Laboratory Curiosity rover. I've also worked with MAVEN and an Earth mission. So I work with a number of different Earth and planetary science missions at NASA.
That all sounds really awesome. And International Observe the Moon Night is actually something, from what I remember, of a child project of the 2009 Year of Astronomy.
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to answer that part of your question. So yes, in 2009, the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, which I will probably often call LRO, launched with a sister spacecraft called LCROSS, which is a mission that crashed into the south pole of the moon in a location that LRO had determined to have a high concentration of water. But to celebrate their successful launches and capture into orbit around the moon, we held 2 events, one at NASA Goddard, which is where LRO was built and our operations center is based, and one at NASA Ames, which is where the principal investigator of the LCROSS mission was based. And we had 2 big events celebrating the moon, and they were so well attended that we decided, hey, this is a really good idea. We should keep this up. And we tried to establish National Observe the Moon Night in 2009. And that quickly became International Observe the Moon Night, because there was such a huge public interest and an international interest, so that in 2010 we hosted our first International Observe the Moon Night. And since then we have been celebrating every year, each fall. We always select a date that is on a Saturday, as that's when most hosts would like to host events. And during a time that we have a moon that's easy to observe in the afternoon or evening and avoids religious holidays. We had some trouble with picking a date that was good for everybody in the fall early on, but we've sort of gotten better about that, but it changes every year based on moon phase and based on the holiday calendar. And it really has just kept up because of public interest in the moon and in planetary science. And we try to keep people excited and get them resources to look at and learn about the moon and keep that going all year round.
And one of the resources that Andy's actually, I think the person who spearheaded is the INOM website, and I'm gonna go ahead and pull that up if you'd like to talk about it, Andy.
Sure. I'll say I led the new look of it. Most of the content on the site's been around since the beginning, with a few additions lately. But yeah, this is our new site. It's a little more modern, maybe a little more clean. Right there at the top, you see you can if you click click here to see locations panel. If you click that, it'll bring up an interactive globe. Unfortunately, if you use Internet Explorer, it may or may not. Chances are it won't show up. And that's because the program that we use, WebGL, is not supported currently by Internet Explorer, but may be in the future. Didn't use Google Earth because that's going away at the end of the year, at least your ability to integrate it into a website. So anyway, you can zoom in on it, find locations, including your own if you've registered an event through the website. If you click on a little bubble, it'll give you more information about that particular event. And the information that shows up depends on how much information that particular event host entered when they registered their event. So yeah. So anyway, so thank you, Pamela. Let's go ahead and close that out. There's also another page you can click, and there's a map. It's a Google map and not a globe. That's under Get Involved. I want to attend an event. So if you go to there, you'll see a map. Same thing. You zoom in and out, click on a bubble, and it'll show you the same information that you saw on the globe. The little T's represent places that indicated they were also having, or that they're having a tweet up as part of their event. That was something early on we really encouraged, but seems like it's something maybe people don't do quite as often anymore. So we don't really see those as much on the map as we used to. You'll notice down there in the footer of that page, which is actually in the footer of every page, a list of our partners that Andrea mentioned, a number of partners involved in INOM. They're there on the left. In the middle, you see the Twitter feed. And on the right column, there are links to our social media accounts for Twitter, Facebook, and Flickr. At Observe the Moon is our handle, and if you use the hashtag MoonNight, we'd appreciate that. And speaking of Flickr, Pamela, go ahead and go on up to the Get Involved, and then the very last, past and future INOM events. So here, so this year, if you're hosting an event, you take pictures. We invite you to go to our Flickr page, which you see a link to it there. And you can upload your. It's a group. It's a public group, so you can upload your pictures to this page, and then when you do, they will get fed automatically into that page on the INOM site. So as soon as folks start uploading their pictures, they'll start showing up under there. It pulls in the most recent 25 images. So if you submit yours and then you don't see it, if you did it early, chances are it's just been pushed out of the way from by 25 more recent pictures that were uploaded. So that'll start populating more for 2015, I imagine, on probably start seeing September 18th our time, because September 18th here in the U.S. will be the 19th at points east. So, and then you can see at the top, we have decided on a date for next year. We haven't made a formal announcement of that yet, but we have decided on a date for INOM next year, using all those different criteria that Andrea described. It has been tough, but like I said, we've gotten the hang of it. We've kind of figured out how to pick dates. Go to the homepage real quick. Point out a couple of other things there. So there's some text about what INOM is and what you can find on the site. And there's that feature kind of in the middle of the page that says the moon right now. That's pretty cool. That is an image that gets updated every minute. It's created by the Solar Science Visualization Studio at NASA Goddard that makes just a lot of really cool visualizations. And this is one particular thing they've done, and no matter the date and time, I said every minute it will update what the moon looks like. at that exact moment. This is a northern hemisphere view, so you can see right below the image we have a link for the northern hemisphere view and a southern hemisphere view, and those will take you directly to the SVS webpage with those images. So check that out if you haven't before. And then below that, we just have three, either like a current INOM product, so the customizable event flyers or something we just put up about a week or two ago. You can go into that square at the very bottom of the flyer, and you can put in your own information for your own event and print it and pass those around. There's two different versions you'll see there. INOM Flyer A and B, both you can enter your information and print them out and distribute to folks. And let's just stay here since we're on this page. We also have the save the date cards if you haven't printed those off yet. These are all PDF files, by the way. We have a moon map, which is a really great resource where we take the moon of what it'll look like that day to observers, and there are features, common features, features you can see without telescope or binoculars, and features you would need telescope binoculars to look at. Points them out or draws a box around, and on the back there's information about those features and close-up images of them by spacecraft. There's one for the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere as well. We'll have a participant survey, so if you're hosting an event and you have participants, we would really love to get their feedback. And we'll have a link to a survey there for them. Well, that are some presentations that you could use as is, or you could modify for your own audiences if you wish. And then for after the event, we'll have a certificate of participation. We actually have those. I just need to put those up. You'll be able to insert your name in a field and then print it off with your name on the certificate. And then we'll also have a survey for hosts to complete as well. And we really appreciate and love that feedback we can get. It helps make the event better, and just helps to further show the success of it and how great it is. Other materials, the INOM logo, some moon observation journals, a bookmark, which I need to update also, and then kind of an interesting graphic that shows you what the moon would look like depending on what latitude you are on the Earth, from your perspective. So, yeah, there we go. So that's kind of just an interesting little thing to look at. Let's hit the activities page. So if you're doing an event and you want to include some hands-on activities for your guests, we have at the top we have 3 featured activities, things that would do really well in an event. One is showing why we have lunar phases. One is a cratering activity showing kind of just a demonstrating or modeling impact cratering process. And then the moon mission activities guide just has a whole bunch of different activities related to the moon that could be done in an event. And below that are links to just various other websites, including the LRO education site, the NASA's Johnson Space Center. They have a moon guide with activity as well. So various things. Moon mappers, of course, Pamela is very familiar with. You can go mark up the moon with that website. So lots of different things to see, to check out. Just go to the About Us, the Get Involved menu again. See if there's anything. If you click on the I want to host an event, you'll see there's an outline of things to consider should you want to do an event, and don't have to do all of these things, but just things to consider as you plan out your event. What else do we have under Get Involved? By now I thought I'd have this thing memorized. Oh yeah, under Resources you can go to Exploration and Research and see what the current research or exploration at the moon is going on. So LRO, as Andrea mentioned, and this is something called an Artemis mission, which actually was originally a mission looking at the sun, has been repurposed to look at the moon in its environment, which is pretty cool. And then below that we have a list of all the different teams that are part of that Survey Institute that Andrea also mentioned, and links to their web pages, and then some other things, again some more links below that, some other resources. And then we have links to past exploration, lunar exploration research activities, past missions, so you can go see those. And I think then we have a future, a mission that's in the works, that you can go read more about that as well. So Um, best website, probably more than we really needed to say. I invite you just go check it out, observethemoonnight.org. Andrew, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I think you did a really great job, but I would just mention you may have seen this under Get Involved, but it's got great resources for hosts, but it's also great if you are just interested in going to an event. You can say, I want to attend an event, and see that map that Andy had called out before, and search your area to see if there's something nearby. And if so, that's wonderful. You can go attend. And if not, then you could consider hosting your own event. And we didn't really discuss this quite yet, but to host an International Observer the Moon Night event, anyone, anywhere can host an event. So you do not have to be at a science center, a library, a museum, a school, or any place like that, although all of those places do host events. You can just get together in your backyard and have your neighbors over, your friends over, and that can be considered an event. So this is meant for everybody, and you can get resources to host events big and small from this site.
And this is really the type of event where you can engage your community where your community hangs out. We're in the process of looking to return to our local custard stand where we've gone for the past several years for this and for Yuri's Night. And it's just neat to go out in the parking lot, gather a couple of telescopes, and people are attracted by the telescopes. And even though we're underneath the parking lights, because it's the moon, you still have this fabulous view. And people come over, and we try not to get too many sticky fingers on the optics, but there's something really magical about eating ice cream, looking at the stars, and just engaging people who never expected to have a random moment of science with their pistachio cream.
Exactly, and I think that's something that has kept International Observer the Moon Night going. So it was originally inspired to celebrate the orbit of 2 spacecraft around the moon. But since then, we've kept going because those spacecraft and others have discovered so many things about the moon that we're really revolutionizing our understanding about the moon. But we also have all of our personal stories and our personal connections to the moon and our cultural connections. And, you know, with the moon being the most easily recognizable celestial object, and that you don't need, or maybe, you know, I guess that's debatable, but, you know, the sun's fairly recognizable too. But, you know, our neighbor in space, and we just have it ingrained in our culture. And I love asking people, you know, what is your favorite memory of the moon? And pretty much everybody has an answer to that. And so International Observer the Moon Night is a chance to both celebrate the exciting science and exploration that's happening, celebrate the moon's role in helping us explore our solar system, because of the moon, we now are going all over the place, you know, going to Mars, going to Venus, going to Pluto, going to all these places, and the moon, you know, arguably has played a really big role in that, and may help us with our future human exploration of the solar system. But it's also that personal and community connection, and we want to celebrate all of those things. So I love the custard stand. We've had people at weddings say that they've stopped the wedding party, gone outside, looked at the moon, and talked about the moon at weddings. You know, we have brownie troops that do this. My parents have their neighbors over on their deck. I mean, anyone can do this. But then we also have the 10,000 people event ones. So, again, whatever is best for you and your community, that is what's completely appropriate for this event.
And this is a chance to remind people that we are still exploring. One of the things that a lot of people forget, especially where so many of us, all of us were born after the last Apollo mission. We're post-Apollo babies, and it's easy for us to go, well, no one in our lifetime has landed on the moon, but that's a very human-centric viewpoint. We've landed robots, we've crashed rovers, not rovers, we've crashed probes, L-Cross, on purpose, let me stress that. And we've taken images that are better than ½ meter per pixel that are allowing us to get amazingly detailed images showing how there's mountains and lava and tunnels through the lava tubes all on the moon. There's so much new science going on. with L-Cross, we were able to learn through that impact that there is substantial water tied up in the minerals on the moon. Every day there's new discoveries, new understanding of our solar system that's coming from understanding this nearest rock that just happens to be orbiting our planet.
Absolutely. The more we are learning about the moon with these missions, the more we're learning we don't understand a lot of things about the moon. All these things that we were expecting to find are leading to new questions and new discoveries. And on the website, we had a training recently for International Observe the Moon Night hosts, and I went through some science results from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and also from LADEE, another lunar mission that just took place recently, and that's the Lunar Atmosphere and Dust Environment Explorer. But just today I sent Andy some science highlights from LRO and some ways to get involved in NASA lunar science. So that will be a presentation up on the International Observe the Moon Night website that people can go and see, and I posted links to where all of that information is, and it goes through some of our recent science results, like, hey, we found water, but not always where we were expecting to find it. We have these permanently shadowed regions at the poles of the moon because the moon is tilted only about a degree and a half off of its axis instead of 23 and a half like the Earth, which lets some areas in these craters be in complete shadow for maybe billions of years. And we do have some water in those craters, but we also have it outside of those areas. We've also found out that there has been recent lunar volcanism, like in the past few million years, and we thought that ended at least 1 billion years ago. So 1 million years may not sound like that much, or may sound like a lot to us. As a geologist, I'm like, oh, 1 million years, that's nothing. And that is how geologists are viewing this. So
what was alive on the Earth witnessing these volcanoes going off 1 million years ago?
Oh my gosh. Well, I mean, the one I think about, 1 million years ago. I don't know what was around then. Not us.
Right.
But dinosaurs, for example, they're 65 million years ago. They probably saw Tycho crater, or whoever was looking up saw Tycho crater forming, which is one of the most recognizable objects on the Earth, on the moon. But that's a great thing to do. We do have activities that compare the timeline of Earth to the timeline of the moon, and doing something like that would be a really fun International Observe the Moon Night event, an activity.
And it's bringing home these kinds of facts to people that is really part of the power of these things. So I just did some Googling, and while modern humans weren't around, the genus Homo, so I think this probably refers to Homo erectus, was already around. So there were humans, just not modern humans, on Earth that were able to, well, see a red ooziness on the surface of the moon, and that's kind of awesome to think about.
We'll just put in the caveat that these late eruptions that we're finding are fairly small, so I don't know whether the Homo erectus actually saw them unless they had put together a telescope, in which case, congratulations. But they would certainly have seen cratering, and of course we can still see impact craters forming on the moon. We have constant surveillance of the moon from a center at Marshall, and they can see bright flashes where objects are striking the moon's surface. And then with LRO, we can go and find those objects and see the craters that formed, and that's helping us also better understand how impact craters form. What do they do? What do they look like? What do they kick up on the surface? And LADEE, the Lunar and Atmosphere Dust Environment Explorer, was also trying to figure out, when stuff hits the surface, how does that change what we call the lunar exosphere, which is a very tenuous atmosphere around the moon. It's there's so few molecules in it that they hardly ever collide. They interact more with the surface than each other in the exosphere. But we're trying to figure out what that is before we disturb that exosphere with more exploration and more human activity on the moon, because that really changes it since it's so thin.
So to break that down a little bit, this is actually something that those of you who are watching this at home have the potential to get engaged with. Those nights where you see that thinnest of thin crescent against a dark sky, especially this happens in winter. If you observe that dark part of the moon that appears slightly in earth glow, reflected and refracted earth light, that dark side of the moon will occasionally have flashes that is the release of energy when something impacts the moon. And when Laddie was in orbit around the moon, it was able to actually see changes in the atmosphere that occurred after one of these flashes, which meant there was an impact and it stirred up dust. Well, in the future, if we're commonly landing things, people, robots, on the moon, every time we land something, we're going to be stirring up that dust. And so we're trying to understand, what does the moon look like when there hasn't been anything hitting it for a while? What does it look like right afterwards? And just how much do we have to worry about this constant landing on the moon? Well, basically creating an awful dusty place like you sometimes experience here on Earth in the desert, except here things settle out of the atmosphere fairly quickly. On the moon, oddly enough, the dust, well, it stays suspended for an awful long time.
Well, and I think that's a really great example, Pamela, of ways that we are using the moon to better understand the solar system, because exospheres, as we call them, those very thin atmospheres, are the most common atmospheres in the solar system. That's what most objects in the solar system have as their atmosphere. And so the moon is right in our backyard, so we are able to use it to better understand our neighborhood. I may have used this analogy with some of you on the line before, but I really think studying the moon is like studying a tree in a forest. And you can study everything about that tree, but until you understand the sunlight coming in, the rain falling down, the squirrels that are running up and down the limbs, the people that are walking by, the grass that's growing around, what kind of nutrients are in the soil, all of those things, you don't really get a full picture of that tree or where it is. And so, you know, when we're studying the Earth, or when we're studying the moon, or when we're studying any single thing, you really have to understand the neighborhood, and that gives you a better understanding of everything around. And so we use the moon to learn about the volcanism, to learn about the impact craters, to learn about the things that shaped its surface and affect it today. And that helps us understand the Earth and what has shaped the Earth, and also what has shaped the other objects in our solar system. And by finding the things that are similar and also the things that are different, we get a better picture of what's happening, and we don't have the answers to all of those questions about how we got here, where we're going, what's coming next, and the moon is helping us understand that, and it's right in our backyard, and it's a great laboratory to ask some of these questions and get some of the answers.
And this tree analogy is a really powerful one, because just like every single tree is unique, if you go to a forest and you take a core sample through 2 different trees so that you can measure their rings without having to kill the trees, what you'll find is the same summers that had amazing rainfall, you have these thick lines. The same years that maybe there wasn't that much sunlight because a volcano went off, you'll have the narrow lines. So you can see the different weather patterns echoed tree after tree after tree. And in our solar system, we see the impact history, where there was different impact rates at different points, reflected in the different surfaces throughout our solar system. So each world is different. You have the windstorms and ice of Mars. You have the amazing secondary cratering problem of Mercury. Every world is slightly different, but we're able to follow through these shared histories from planet to planet and world to world. So Andy, what is your favorite recent scientific bit that you like to bring into these discussions?
Oh gosh, I don't know. Recent?
So I have to admit, I'm totally into the whole lava on the moon. It's the fact that, well, yes, maybe the early humans weren't able to make out the glow, but if you're around 1 billion years ago, before eyeballs actually existed, and you had eyeballs that didn't actually exist, you would have been able to see the lava flows on the moon. That, to me, is just awesome to think about.
I have lots of these, Pamela, if you want more.
Go
But I'll
for
let
it.
Andy go first.
Oh, I guess, well, the idea of like Tycho, when Tycho formed, and that had dinosaurs had larger brains, and maybe if they had seen more than one impact, they may have thought, that could happen to us. Maybe we should do something about that should the time come. Alas, it didn't. They had 25 million years to come up with a space program, and they failed. Of course, that's really silly, but it's a interesting kind of thought experiment. And that's another thing, a question somebody posed shortly after I got to LPI and never really thought about before was, and this is a complete hypothetical, but like, without the moon, I mean, forgetting the physical effects of the Earth if there was no moon, but would space exploration exist if there was no moon? The moon, and with the exception of our imagination is running wild with Mars, in the late 19th century, early 20th century, the moon was the first target. And so, had there been no moon just sitting there, staring at us in the face, would we have really been dared or challenged to make that jump and send us to the moon and then keep going? So, something to think about.
Yeah, the moon has played such an influential role, and today it's the motivating force behind the Google Lunar X Prize, which hopefully in the next 18 months or so we'll start to see winners. It's an amazing time as we're getting back to exploring now with commercial space. We've done it with the government bills. Now we're doing it with just individuals figuring out, in some cases, how to 3D print themselves a space probe. It's a completely new day of exploration. And hopefully with Observe the Moon Night, we'll be able to introduce a lot more people, in my case, people eating custard, to the concept that we are still exploring. It's just not with humans who can easily die if the sun gives off a burst of radiation. We're doing things more safely and more data-driven nowadays, and that's kind of awesome. So Andrea, if you could have any one amazing thing happen on September 19th, what would that amazing thing be?
I really like the idea of a global lunar science and planetary science conversation. So we are really trying to get people to share highlights and pictures of their events through social media so that people can see, oh, I'm in Australia and this is what the moon looks like for me now. I'm in India and I am doing this activity, and I am, in Kazakhstan doing this, and I'm in Kansas and I'm doing this, and wherever you happen to be, if you are talking about the moon with other enthusiasts about science and space and exploration around the world, I would love to see more of that conversation happening across the globe, and I would love to have it in more communities around the world.
So basically what I'm hearing is, let's get Moon Night trending on September 19th on Twitter, on Weibo, on Instagram, on all the different many-languaged social media platforms out there. And let's not have it just be British Twitter, just be Los Angeles Twitter. Have it be all of social media, sharing a discussion about this moon that we can all look up and see, well, half a world at a time, essentially.
Absolutely, but it really, September 19th is the day that we're focusing on this year, but we understand that not everyone is able to have an event on September 19th. So anytime around that time, if you want to go out and get together with people and celebrate the moon and learn about what's happening with science and exploration of the moon and of our solar system, please go and do that. And so we can start this conversation now and just, start sharing your ideas and start sharing, this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to do it. And, is anyone interested, and how is that going to happen? So yes, definitely on September 19th, and we love that one day of unity, but let's get excited now.
And it's much harder to photograph the moon than one might think, so start practicing now is one word I would say, because it's hard. Andy, what were you about to say?
I was like, every year I've waited for this to happen. I would love for somebody, if possible, at McMurdo Station to take a picture, and then post the fact that they had an event. We have reached every continent except Antarctica in the past 5 years. An event has been on every continent except for Antarctica.
Will the summer team have arrived yet, or is it too early in the year?
I don't know.
So this is something we need to figure which research teams are down there right now so that we can try and get people engaged. We have a challenge. Internet help.
That's right. All of you, this is your call to action on the line now. You find your friends who know friends who know friends who are down in Antarctica and get them to take pictures of the moon.
So this was supposed to be a 30-minute conversation. We're running long. I think that's completely okay. Do you have any parting words you'd like to leave our audience with? I'll go to you, Andrea.
I just want to thank you for being here today, and I encourage you to participate and to share, the excitement of lunar science and exploration with your family, friends, and community.
And if you're clouded out, don't forget you can go to CosmoQuest and explore the moon from the nice temperature-controlled environment of your living room sofa.
Absolutely.
So, and Andy, what do we have to look forward to in the coming weeks?
So our next event, Hangout, we have scheduled for the 22nd of this month, although all three of us actually are going to be at a meeting. So probably we're going to see if we can get that pushed to October 6th, but we should be able to. We're going to chat with a team of high school students, although 3/5 of them are now in college.
Former high school students.
Sorry?
Former high school students.
Yes, former high school students, current high school students who did some research last year as part of one of the CLSE education programs that then went on to the Survey Forum at NASA Ames this July, presented their work, and got third place in the student poster competition, competing with undergrads and graduates. So did really well. So they're going to be on talking about their experience in that research program, what they learned for it and through it, and then we'll work on lining up through November and December.
That sounds great. So thank you, everyone who's tuned in. You can learn more about everything we have talked about tonight by going to the Observe the Moon website.
ObserveTheMoonNight.org.
Thank you. And please subscribe to us on YouTube and keep picking up the science. Thank you. It has been exciting as always, and thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been the Center for Lunar Science and Exploration Hangout. This is always the first Tuesday of the month, recorded at 5:30 Pacific, 8:30 Eastern, and we hope that you will be part of our month every month. So thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Thank you.